Last week, we were talking with Chip Conley about the anatomy of transitions, and he described his three parts of a transition. And it got me to thinking, and Chip was willing to come back and talk about entrepreneurial transitions with relation to this model. So Chip Conley is back online here with us, and he's on a midlife mission to help people. He is the founder and CEO of MEA and is the New York Best Time, or sorry, the Times best-selling author with a new book out called Learning to Love Midlife. Chip, thanks again for joining us.
Thanks, Andre. Good to be here again.
Yeah, we had a really great in-depth conversation about the MEA model for anatomy of a transition. And the more I kept thinking about it is entrepreneurialism is nothing but one transition after another, especially if you're a growth mindset entrepreneur. And a lot of our examples and discussion the last time was about midlife crisis and more personal life stuff. Is it different as an entrepreneurial transition, or is it the same kind of concept and things, and we still go through the same process? Or, enlighten me here.
Well, I think the anatomy of a transition, which has these three stages of the ending of something, the messy middle, and the beginning of something, is relevant across all kinds of transitions, including entrepreneurial ones. Having sold a business, to Hyatt, to the Pritzker family that sold it to Hyatt many years ago, I know that I didn't do a very good job of the first stage, which was to say, like, oh, I'm selling it. I'm no longer going to be CEO. I'm going to still be an investor, but everybody's going to still see me as the CEO, even though I'm not CEO anymore.
Right.
So the mistake I made there at age 50 was I didn't ritualize the process after 24 years of being the CEO of that company to help everybody, including myself, see I'm not the CEO anymore. I can be the figurehead of the company, etc. Ultimately, I became executive chair, but I kept falling back to trying to be the CEO of
Right.
the company, and I really didn't clarify for myself first and foremost that I was supposed to be facing forward, looking to my messy middle and to my new beginning. Ultimately, I got that right when I
Yeah.
did that, and I became, head of global hospitality and strategy, and the mentor to the three founders of Airbnb, and that story turned out very well. But I have to say that the first year or two after I sold a majority of my boutique hotel company, I was trying to figure out if I had ended something or if I was in the messy middle. And if I could do it over again, I would have had some event that just says passing of the baton
Right.
to the team. And I didn't do that.
And that's what you're referring to as ritualizing the transition?
That's correct. So to ritualize your transition is what you do when you're trying to finish the first stage of a transition, which is the ending of something. You could do a ritual on your own. I could have
Mhm.
had I could have had a meal with a good friend and said, hey, I just want to talk through how I'm going to ritualize this. Why is ritual important? Ritual is important because it helps you mark a point in time in which that's the past and now here's the future. Um, when you're going through a transition, you're going through a threshold. So think of a threshold as like going, through a doorway. When you're going through a doorway, you need to sort of have a door there. You have to have something that actually says, like, I am going from that space to this
Right.
space.
Yeah.
And for a lot of people, sometimes it happens in retirement. Like they decide to retire, but they don't. In the old days, yes, they would give you a watch and then you retire and maybe a party. And that could have been the ritual. But for so many people, they just sort of like, they don't have that. And they end up like, oh, I'm going to go to part-time and then and they get lost because they didn't retire to something. They retired from something, but
Yeah.
not to something. And that's a critical shift in mindset. So yes, I think this model can work for any entrepreneur. It can work for launching a new project. Let's say you have
True.
a piece of your business that's not doing well, and you're going to bring in a new team, and there's going to be a sense like, okay, we're going to like sunset part of the business. The process of actually sunsetting that part of the business, and saying, what did we learn from that? What were our key lessons? This is the ending of that, but it's not like it's dead. We're going to take that lesson and take it into the future. I want to tell you a story about a woman named Mariana. She had a branding and graphic design firm in the Bay Area, and she was very successful. She was really good at what she did. And because she was good at what she did as a professional services firm, she hired people who were really good at what they did, and she got a lot of business. And in the Bay Area, it was feast or famine, though. So
Mhm.
during the good times, during the dot-com boom, she got a lot of business. During the dot-com bust, she was the kind of business where, oh, we're going to cut back on branding and graphics. And so she had a boom and bust cycle in her business that she hated because it meant that she was constantly having to lay people off. So she came down to MEA, to the Modern Elder Academy, and she was actually in our very first beta workshop. We've had 150 workshops now over the
Wow.
past 6 years.
Congratulations.
And yeah, it's amazing. And so she was there and she said, like, I have been talking for years about the fact that I just want to take my business down to just a small, just me, one person who works for me, and then an executive assistant. That's all I want. And I don't want to grow any bigger, because my life will be better as a
Right.
result of that. And so she decided to do the following after being at MEA. She went back up to the Bay Area. She wrote an email to all of her current employees, former employees, current clients, former clients, and said, in the next 3 months, I'm going to be winding my business down. And I'm inviting you to come and actually to a cemetery and to go through a wake. We're going to actually have a ritual at the cemetery to say, come together and say, like, what did this company mean to all of us? And we're going to do that partly because I want everybody to see, this isn't there's not a death here. There's a death, yes, because you're in a cemetery,
Yeah. Yeah.
but we're going to celebrate. We're going to celebrate the life of that company. And we are going to know that I'm going into the messy middle and I'm going to find my new beginning. And I'm going to have a small little firm and I'm going to be very selective about clients because I don't have a big business that I have to actually
Mhm.
feed and all those salaries I have to be feeding. And so that's how she ritualized it.
And the ritual part is to get that mental break that this is a new beginning or the new start,
Yep,
and the past is
exactly.
the past.
And sometimes it's not just for yourself, it's for other people. It helps other people to see the ritual
Right,
as well.
right, right, right. Yeah, so it's not, yeah, it's an external communication that's received by everyone.
Yep.
Um, in your ebook as well, I really like the section about, are your transitions regenerative or regressive?
Yeah.
Right when I read that title, I can go, yeah, those transitions in my entrepreneurial journey were definitely regressive. Some were regenerative. And it's
Yeah.
a very subtle change of the word, but I think they're impactful.
Well, let's define it. So regenerative is bringing life to something.
Mhm.
It brings life and vitality to something. And, I mean, can you always do regenerative things even in the worst of times? Yeah, you probably can, but it's harder. It's harder when you're, having to shut down a business. How do you do that in a regenerative way? I
Yeah.
mean, but, again, ritual can be helpful there. Regressive basically means you're taking steps backwards. And whatever you're doing is doing the opposite of creating life. It's actually sort of like shutting things down.
Yeah.
And creating no momentum from this. And so it's a nice wordplay, but it's actually also a really great mind frame to sort of consider.
So a lot of your experience has been around, like you've self-professed you're in a midlife mission to help people with their midlife transitions. Um, have you ever given thought of, because it hit me the other day that right now myself, I'm in my midlife entrepreneurial transition, and it's a move from what made me money in the past to pursue my purpose and passion, which
Mhm.
is not like I'm an engineer. My skill is engineering. It's made me a lot of money in the past, but it's not my true passion and purpose. And now I want to go to the next step. But that was very comfortable back then,
Yeah.
right?
Well, you're going to have to get comfortable in the messy middle and becoming a new beginner. And what gives you passion and purpose? What is it what's the path that would give you that?
Ultimately, is me sitting down with someone and identifying their uniqueness, their unique talents, their unique
Mhm.
strengths, and then giving them the authority and the power and the vocabulary to communicate that and to own themselves.
And would you do that as like a leadership coach or an executive coach or?
What I've realized with times, I've done it with everyone. So yeah, right now I'm pursuing helping growth mindset ADHD entrepreneurs with that. But I've
Mhm,
always helped my engineering clients as well doing that, understanding what their unique stuff, and then building their strengths by my support, my
mhm,
team, and
mhm.
everyone around me.
Well, that's beautiful. So, I think the key in doing that is going to be like, how do you mark your progress along the way?
Ah,
Um, there's a great book called The Progress Principle. It was written maybe a dozen years ago. Written by a couple Harvard Business School professors. And what they showed was the data that shows that helping a person feel like they're making progress actually helps them make progress. So let me be clear about that.
yeah.
So just the psychology of thinking you're making progress gives you the motivation to make more progress. And so when we're making changes, that's one of the key things. BJ Fogg's work at Stanford also on tiny habits is
Yes.
helpful there as
Yeah.
well. Is how do you stack a habit on something that you already have some competence in, and or that you already do regularly. And so yeah. Well, I'm excited for you, Andre.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And it's just one of those things where I realize I'm talking to other growth mindset entrepreneurs, and we all seem to be 20, 25 years in our entrepreneurial journey. We're looking for that next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more around the purpose and the passion.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what you said in the last episode was we still have that core. It's not a reinvention, it's more of a transformation. So what I've really realized with time the last couple of years is my unique ability is helping people see themselves who as they truly are and give
Mm-hmm.
them the vocabulary. And I've done that my whole life. I think I can go back to childhood and
That
see
is your
that I was
through
doing it.
line.
Yeah.
That is your through line. So
Ah.
one of the great qualities of moving into midlife is being able to see the through line of your life, see the breadcrumbs from the past that lead to the breadcrumbs to the future, that give you the sense of a path and a story. The narrative, having a narrative is incredibly valuable. And so the fact that you can see it from the past, you can see that, and you can now, that gives you more confidence. Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, this is very different than where I was 5 years ago or 10 years ago. In fact, if you told me that I was going to be doing this 5 or 10 years ago, I might have said like, no way. But now I can see the through line, and the through line gives you the sense, I'm on the right path.
And for me, I think if I can phrase the through line, it's me
Yeah.
disrupting people's thinking of themselves.
Beautiful, beautiful.
So
Partly because you've had to do it for yourself.
many times.
You listen, a shaman, and we had a shaman down in Baja named Saul. A shaman's just a wounded healer. They've learned their shamanism. And when I say shaman, it could be an executive coach. It doesn't have to be
Yeah,
like a shaman that takes you out into the jungle, but like someone who's actually a teacher for you. And a healer is someone who's had to learn their lessons themselves.
I like that. A wounded healer. And Saul was amazing at that retreat.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. Throw it back into the universe and it'll come back because it's all the
Yeah.
same energy.
Mm.
Um, well, yeah, that's the through line. So our through line to get us into the future is actually based on looking back in the past.
Yes, it does. I mean, if you can find that through line
Yeah.
from the past, it helps you have clarity about what you've learned along the way. And then you get a confidence like, oh my God, I'm going to have a
Yeah.
through line 10 years from now from this time. And that gets back to this question of like, wisdom is the painful life lessons that
Yeah.
actually are metabolized as raw material into that future wisdom.
And that further reinforces your statement of that constant core
Yeah.
of the
Yes.
transformation. And we need that constant core to for positive growth in the future as well.
Yep. Exactly.
Sorry, I got an air silence there because that's hit me hard. I got a lot of thoughts coming around that. That's fantastic, and I hope you, the
Well,
listener, are seeing this or hearing this. Like that through line of your life helps with your future path. I think it's a big one
mm,
for me, and yeah. So a lot of different stages. Selling the company, I can definitely see that as a big transition point. I never thought of transitions entrepreneurially having different aspects of your business doing well or not. It's
mm.
fantastic. Good or bad partnerships would be one, or merging. would be
Mhm.
another. But like you say, you can still apply your anatomy of transition of the three parts to all of this. And is it regenerative? Is it regressive? Regenerative is growing with momentum, is what I understood, and regressive is more about taking backward steps with no momentum.
Mhm.
And I like the shaman as a wounded healer, and helping people see their progress creates progress. And I appreciate you saying that, because I think I just got into words what I've always been doing for a lot of people. I was
Mm.
always pointing out, you are making progress, no matter how big or small, it's still, we're moving forward. So do you have any last recommendations to the entrepreneur who's listening about, the transitions? I think your point from the last episode was a lot about don't do it alone. And I'm
Mm.
finding that myself, it's me allowing people helping me was a big change.
Mm.
And being able to talk things through is a big support.
No, I would say that be curious.
Uh,
If there is a quality that I think is like the elixir of the fountain of youth, it is curiosity. And we don't give ourselves a lot of space for it sometimes because curiosity is not efficient. It's
yeah.
asking bigger questions. But when I was at Airbnb, I think my curiosity, they said, Chip, you're a modern elder. You're someone who's as curious as you are wise. And my curiosity helped us to see things in new ways. And that's really essential. And as an entrepreneur, being curious and asking lots of questions of your team, so you don't have to be the hero and the know-it-all yourself, is really essential.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point to make as well, is the curiosity is key. I like how you said it's not always organized. Again, there's another little aha for me on that one.
Yeah.
And the way we react to the transitions, will that also, if we react positively or negatively, it'll become regressive or regenerative?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I guess
exactly.
that's logical sense there. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then the other thing too is, wow, this was really good for me, and I appreciate your insights. The ritualization is massive,
Mm.
and you put it in such elegant words to that it makes a lot of logical sense to me. Well, we need these rituals, and maybe I wasn't taking these rituals seriously in the past.
Mhm.
Is probably another way. So, and how do you mark your progress? It's measuring progress, measuring growth.
Mhm.
So I really like that as well. So, to the listeners, the wisdom that Chip has been sharing with us these last two chats here, this is what you get at MEA, at the
Mm.
Modern Elder Academy. And I got to tell you, the place in El Pascadero and Baja South in Mexico there, when I walked through those front gates, it was immediate
Mm.
calm and
Yeah.
immediate comfort. And I didn't
Yeah.
know anyone. I didn't know anyone. And can you explain a little more about the Modern Academy?
Modern
Sorry.
Elder, yeah,
Yeah.
MEA. Yep, Modern Elder Academy. So yeah, I started it toward the end of my time at Airbnb because I wanted to create a place where leaders and entrepreneurs and people in general could come together and develop their wisdom. And so it's the world's first midlife wisdom school. We focus on navigating transitions, cultivating purpose, helping people to own their wisdom, and especially leadership teams, and helping people to actually reframe their relationship with aging. But I would say for leadership, we've had lots of leadership teams come and do a private week, do a
Mhm.
private program with us that helps that team focus on wisdom. On the MEA website, meawisdom.com, not only will you find the Anatomy of a Transition ebook, but you'll also find one called Why Successful Leaders Value Wisdom. And I highly recommend that because there's a bunch of wisdom practices. All this is free, by the way, wisdom practices that you can explore there. Yes, MEA costs money, but our content on our website does not.
Yeah, I'll put the links to the book, the transition book, and your wisdom practices for leaders on the website. And for the
Mm.
listener, I highly recommend you check out those free resources and the site. And I would highly recommend you seriously consider going
Mm.
to an MEA event, because to me, it was, I
Mm.
showed up as one person, and I came out as an, honestly,
Mhm.
here's a tacky reference, but I was a new butterfly in the end. And I was only 6 days there.
Yeah.
And that had a
Well,
lot to do with the environment that you have and the safe
mhm.
space. So
Yeah.
please take a look at the website, and I highly recommend joining one of their events. Chip, any last words of wisdom for our listeners before we go?
No, thank you. Thanks for giving me the time to hang out with your community.
Yeah, and I appreciate you taking the time as well. So to you, the listener, thanks for listening with me. And are you currently in an entrepreneurial transition? And what stage are you at? The end, the messy middle, or in the new beginnings? So we'll talk to you soon. Take care.